second. A ver, es que... Aquí. The screen. Bueno. So yeah, welcome everyone. We are going to start our webinar on agriculture skills analysis, understanding agriculture sector skills needs and challenges across European regions. My name is Alicia Gavan and I work for EARLALL, the European Association of Regional and Local Authorities and Lifelong Learning. We organize this webinar in cooperation with our working group on skills and labor market. That is co-led by our colleagues from the Catalan Regional Minister of Education, Oscar and Anna. And this is just to let you know who we are in brief. So, and then I will just give you some technical aspects. So please make sure that your microphone is mute, rename yourself when accessing the room. And please take note that we will be taking pictures during the session, and this might be published on our social media channels. You can ask the chat box to ask questions during the session, and also the floor will be open during the presentations, after the presentations. We will be recording, as you have seen, the webinar, and then we will be sharing the presentations after the event, so no worries, everything will be shared with all of you. So now I will pass the floor to our chair of the working group, Skills and Labor Market, Oscar. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alicia. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this webinar. And we're welcoming you. And this is the agenda. You can have a quick look at what we're going to be talking about today and who is going to be talking about that. Okay. Our first speaker is an expert that really fits in nicely with the topic that we're dealing with today. So his name is Fabio Cosu. So we'll say buongiorno to Fabio, and in case you're from Sardinia, buenos dias. So I'm not sure if you're from Sardinia, but just in case, you can confirm that later. Fabio Cosu, as I was saying, his profile is perfect for this webinar because, for a start, he's an agronomist by academic background. And after having worked in his field of studies for many years, then at the moment he's a policy analyst at the European Commission's Directorate-General on Agriculture. So he's got a lot of experience on this topic. And because he has a keen interest in skills development in agriculture, that joins the topic of agriculture with vocational training, which is exactly what we're looking for. So Fabio, thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And we're eager to listen to what you have to say to us. Thank you.
So thank you very much for the nice presentation. So I'm just adding that I work in the European Commission Department for Agriculture and Rural Development, and unit that is called Policy Perspectives. We are the unit in a way that are tasked with developing the long-term perspective of the Common Agricultural Policy, ensuring its coherence with other European policies and strategies. Myself, as Oscar kindly said, I'm dealing, among other things, and not since a long time, but quite a great passion. I'm dealing with the topic of improving skills and competencies as enabler for innovation in the agricultural sector. So the organizer of this meeting kindly asked me to kickstart with by putting, let's say, the context, some context around the topic of agricultural skills from a policy perspective, and highlighting specific challenges. and also when opportunities for action. So this is what I will try to do in the next few slides. Next slide, please. So there are 3 takeaway messages that I would like to pass you on, and I hope they are more or less explicit in what I'm going to tell. They're quite self-explanatory. There are structural changes of the EU farming sectors and a number concurring challenges that will persist also in the future, that actually really calls for reconsideration, not only on what skills will be needed for agriculture, but also the way to deliver them and to whom. The second message is that in this context of green and digital transition, skills are absolutely important. This, I think, is nothing new for you, but especially in a sector like agriculture, this transition will have an impact on skills and competencies for the sectors. But on the other hand, skills themselves, the right skill, will be enablers for the green transition and the digital transition, with a component which I call just, and I will speak about it later. And finally, that is a strategic approach to skills development in agriculture is needed to attract and retain talent. Next slide, please. So I will start to put this in context and start talking about what is the situation of agriculture in the EU, with a focus on, let's say, who is farming in a way. Start to say that the EU agriculture as a sector can be considered still a big employer, knowing that knowing how many people are employed actually in agriculture is not straightforward as it might seem, and certainly not easy as other sectors of the economy because of the numbers of workers part-time, seasonal, and the fact that most of the business, the farm business in Europe, are family run. So the reality is also bigger than what you see that written, so that 8.7 million of people work in agriculture in 2020 as an employee, which represent almost the 4% of the labor force in Europe. As I said, the reality is that EU regular labor force, so all consider also those that work part-time, family members that would work in the farm, is much larger and amount to around 70 million people in 2020. But it's, of course, declining. Is declining with, we have been having also the census 2020 tell us in the last 10 years, we lost still again 1 million farms. We are also fewer farmers, and labor force has been drastically reduced with around a decrease of around 4.5 million annual work unit in the last 2 decades, and this has not been, let's say, it's a trend that was diversified around countries. But still, farming remains a predominantly farm business activity, and there is a various picture emerging across member state when we focus on labor force. That will be the focus on the next slide. And some 68% of farm managers, as you know, are still male, and almost 60% are of all age, over 55 years old, and only 12% of farm managers are below 40. And finally, it's important to notice that most farm managers in the EU, as you well know, maybe practical experience solely. So this was case for 7 in every 10 of farmers. So the 72% of farmers have only, let's say, practical experience, and the share of people with full agricultural training, it's much lower. Next slide, please. So this slide, it's important, I think, because it provides details about how the situation is varied around the employment of the labor workforce, and there are also some trends behind it that are quite telling. So a majority of the agricultural labor force in Europe used on farms for agricultural activities was carried out on family farms. However, this is true for most, but not all member states. Only in Estonia, France, Czechia, and Slovakia, for example, this was not the case. And there has been apparent shift away from farms with only farm workers towards farms where family workers make up more than 50% of the labor between 2010 to 2020. So the key message is that whilst family farms still dominate the working landscape of farming in the EU, the number of family farms that rely solely on farm workers has declined particularly fast. So this also will have an implication for the kind of population that we will need to skill and upskill and reskill. Next slide. So far, I have given a picture around the structural changes in agriculture, but the structural change is also happening in the context of multiple concurring challenges in even more unpredictable and changing, let's say, environment for the sectors. Challenges that are, that the agricultural sector face and farmers face right now is the one to provide sufficient food, so ensuring food security, but doing it in a way that stays within the planetary boundaries, so that contributes to address climate change, while they need to be resilient against shocks, so while improving their sustainability. So the focus remains for them in any case, for farmers, very much on competitiveness, on ensuring, a fair income, but selling the produce in the markets. And innovation here, it plays a key role. So to enhance productivity in a sustainable way. But innovation in physical capital is not alone is not sufficient to raise productivity, but it needs to be complemented with higher level and new labor skills. For example, when it comes to digital technologies and precision machinery, for example. So consequently here also education and training is at the same time an indicator and an enabler for the uptake of new technologies and approaches. Next slide. So these challenges and the changes societal demands that goes with them, and the role of skills development in meeting such demands are recognized in overarching EU policies, as you know. So with the twin transitions, which is grounded in the European Green Deal and the digital decade, will have significant implication for agricultural skills, educations, and employment opportunities. And at the same time, as I was saying, same skills, education, and professional training will be an important as enablers for the transitions. So the skills and job development needs associated with this transformational ambition are also recognized in overarching priorities, like, for example, the Green Deal. And these overarching ambitions are also reflecting more specific agriculture and rural policy, and themselves becomes driver for skills development. If you think about the implementation of the eco schemes under the common agricultural policies, this will require definitely an increased level of competences in order to do things right beyond doing the right things. Next slide. So in this context, we can attempt to sketch a map of the skills, key skills needed for the agriculture sector today and tomorrow. This is just one possible representation that are made up based on available literature, and there's quite recently an extensive literature around the agriculture, the skills needed in the agriculture and agri-food sector. So I will not go through that because all the keywords are there, but the main findings in general, I would say, point towards a need for skills to deal with complex and complicated problems, and also to adapt and live with changes. So whether they're coming from climate change, technological development, new strategies related to farming, the food system in general, markets. So in this, I wanted to point out the importance of what I call horizontal skills, which is a term that I prefer better than soft skills in many respects. And for example, the skills to network or collaborate outside one's own practice, a subject, it would be increasingly required in order, for example, to get the right knowledge, to collaborate with advisors, researchers, and then to finally to innovate. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, but this is the point where I would like to put, let's say, an important accent on the human aspect of these challenges, and and make a link with competences and skills, because this transition that we've been talking about, so the green and digital transition, must be people-centered and inclusive in order to have just outcomes from everyone, generating quality jobs, and as we said, leave no one behind. In particular, in the agriculture sector, we know we need young people from agricultural backgrounds to remain on this professional path, but also newcomers to be encouraged to enter the sector. So in this respect, continuous professional developments need to be implemented in agriculture, as well an improvement of the qualification status, which is equivalent to other professions, other sectors. This will be key to give farmers and farm workers the drive to improve their skills. No? So when it comes to access to quality traineeship and education, there are still inequalities, though, which particularly concern what we call the vulnerable groups. So here we really need, we see the need to improve the way in which deliver training, the need for inclusive measures to address the skills gap in agriculture, and equal access. And finally, the farming sector, I mean, is, I would say, a prime example of how the green transition can also improve worker conditions. For example, if we reflect on the pressure, in a way, the requirements to decrease the use of pesticides, this has not just a positive effect on the environment, but also on the health, and not only the consumer, but also of the ones working in the field. At the same time, there's the large number of technological and organizational changes that are required to address this. And this, according also to surveys and the voice of farmers, becomes a major stress factor, which is not to be underestimated. So the need to promote investment in training and skilling to improve working condition and the adaptability of farm workers to change becomes paramount. Next slide, please. So, and here we come now to the available tools. I will not delve into that. I want just to put this to show that there are a range of EU policies that are sectoral. Of course, coming from DG Agri, I put first the Common Agricultural Policy because it's also the one that, you know, provide the bulk of financial support for reskilling and upskilling in agriculture. But there are a number of other policies that concur to this objective, like under the Research Innovation Framework, the Digital Europe program when it comes to capacity buildings on advanced digital skills, and other policies like Erasmus or the European Social Fund that can be mobilized together in order to address the skills gap in the farming sector. And of course, there are also important, let's say, stakeholders-led initiatives like the large-scale skills partnership for the agri-food ecosystem. That is one of the large-scale skills partnership under the Pact for Skills of the European Skills Agenda. So next slide, and that will be almost the end. So what is missing with respect to, you know, the tools and the policy that we set up in order to address the issue of upskilling, reskilling the agriculture sector workforce? What can be improved or what can be linked? This is my personal take, as my personal reading. I think there are three, let's say, domains around which we can think to do more, and in which I think also regional and local authorities have some homework possibly to do. So the intelligence, I think that we'll need to step up efforts in more and precise meaningful data on farm labor and skills, coupled with efforts in skills forecasting, in which, for example, CEDEFOP is investing very much, because this can help very much better target the education and training programs to the real needs, and especially helps the issue, so addressing the issue of skill mismatches, which, so the number of workers in the agricultural sector that are overqualified or underqualified with respect to the position they are covering, that we know for an OECD study that it's one of the highest among all the economic sector. The second area of improvement is the demand. With demand, I mean that the supply of skills, so of training educational program, is not sufficient per se if the demand of skills is not expressed by those that need them. So this is witnessed a lot, in particular by the rate of participation in the vocational educational training in activities in the farming sector with respect to other sector of the economy, which is one of the lowest. And this has to do with the attractiveness and the quality of the learning offer and the motivation of farmers to recognize skills development as a need. So these are both aspects, I think, where further work has to be done. And finally, the perspective, which is come last but is not least important, because at your level, the framework is set for a professional development of the sector. For example, think about the council recommendation, micro-credentials, and individual learning accounts. And this is key to raise the interest of farmers and farm workers in skills development in view of better economic opportunities. So what is needed is the implementation of this framework and to make it work for the specific needs of the farming sector. And the last slide, please. Because this is the end of my presentation, I wanted to make this presentation a bit more specific to the audience, so I try to do my best to come up with some, let's say, reflection for regional and local authorities about the role that you can have around this topic. I will not go through them because they're self-explanatory, but they point out to the third takeaway message that I introduced at the beginning of my presentation, is the need to approach the upskilling, the skills development in agricultural sector in a very strategic way. Strategic doesn't mean only, in my mind, setting target and planning intervention accordingly. It's also fostering integrated approach, policy responses, using synergistically all the tools available, and also do it in a partnership in order to make sure that the policy action are aligned with the real needs on the ground. So that's all for me. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to reply question later in it.
Oscar, you are mute.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Please excuse me. Yeah, I was saying that, I was thanking Fabio for his excellent presentation. It was really interesting. And yes, there is a question in the chat, a question from Charlotte. And she says, how could we encourage young farmers to identify their skill needs, especially for those rural farming examples who might not be in contact with learning institutions? So that was, how could we encourage young farmers to identify their skill needs?
Should I reply right now?
Yeah, yes, please, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very important question, because as I said, not everyone in the farming sector, considering also the context they're living in, etc., have not equal access to training, upskilling opportunities. And so there is quite a need from public authorities, but also the actors that work closely to farmers, for example, farm advisors, to step up the outreach. I think that farmers, as any other professional, need also mentoring, needs indication, and this is the role of advisors, I think, first of all, but also the public authorities to create, in a way, an enabling environment around the farmers, let's say a safety net that the farmers can refer to. And I'm talking about also simple things like creating, demonstration farms or farms networks or group discussion. These are the way, as for any other categories, in which the professional farming, as I like to call them, can understand how things can be done better and see, my neighbor is doing this and I'm not doing it. Why? Then I need to change something, or it's simply crazy. Sometimes this is also the answer.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we've got another question on the chat as well from Liz from the Région Centre-Val de Loire. First of all, she makes like a little introduction, and she mentions that the importance of increasing qualifications, more digitalization, and therefore more investment. Yeah, but then she mentions that doesn't contribute to increased income, especially on small farms. And her question is, what are the Commission's proposals on this subject? How are short supply chains taken into account in a context of ecological transition and challenge? That was a meaty question, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very wide-ranging question. I'd say, let's say, from what I understood also from the question, yeah, as I said, it's not just because there are investment in place or opportunities for supporting investment that automatically this translate into an increase of income, because of multiple challenges that we need to address at the same time. Sometimes it's not just a question of increasing productivity on the field. It's also a question to be able to sell their own produce. And so here, definitely, let's say, intervention to strengthen the position of the farmers in the supply chain are definitely important. Under the Common Agricultural Policy, in fact, these aspects are taken account in a sort of a holistic perspective. The policy itself has 9+1 specific objectives that try to cover, in fact, all the needs of the farming sector and try to provide tools in order to address them. And support for investment is there. Support for improving the position of the farming sector is there through cooperation measures, through sector intervention. Support for increasing skills are there. So the reply, in a way, is still there, in my view.
Thank you, Fabio. Yeah, I think we've got anything else? Yeah, we've got you're really successful here, Fabio. There's so many questions for you. I don't know if, Alicia, I don't know if we've got time to answer all these questions now, or...
I see that there are 6 questions from Gran Canaria. Excellent. So maybe what we can do is just gather them and transfer via email to Fabio and see if we can include this in the report. But it's true, like now, maybe we have to give the floor to our regions as well to see what is happening in the regions with the agricultural skills. So for sure, we will gather all these questions. Thank you so much for your interest. But yeah, I think we can go ahead with the, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's a pity we can't stop here for those questions.
Sorry, I can also give a look at the chat, because I was not looking at the chat, and see whether I can maybe address some of them as far as I can. So yeah, because that would be a pity not to, to answer. So yeah, I will try to do both.
Thank you, Fabio.
Thank you, Fabio. And thank you for your participation. It was a pleasure having you. And yes, I think we've learned a lot of things from your presentation. Thank you. Right, so show must go on. So now we go on to the session number 2. Fabio was number 1, and number 2 is like a multi-session because we have different speakers from different regions. And the first one is Adeline from Brittany.
Yes.
Yes, here she is. Bonjour, Adeline de Mat.
Bonjour, good morning to everyone.
Okay, right. So Adeline, I'll briefly introduce you, and then you can go on to your presentation if you feel. Right. So yes, Adeline is a member of the Regional Council of Brittany. She's a regional delegate for agricultural training in the Brittany region, and she's also a farmer and a breeder of Limousin cows. So we've got this hybrid profile here on Adeline, because on the one hand, she knows the administration side, and then on the other hand, she knows like the hands-on working the land and with the animals. So I think she's also a very good profile to give her point of view on the sector, especially in her region in Brittany. So yes, thank you, Adeline, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you for my presentation. Yes, good morning to everyone. I'm Adeline Berthelot. I'm regional elected representative responsible for agricultural training for the regional council in Brittany, in France. And Oscar said I'm a breeder of Brittany, like you see in the picture inside me. And today I will present you our regional action plan, which aims to improve the attractiveness of public agricultural schools. And my presentation will be structured around 3 main points. First, I will talk about the key facts and figures of the vocational education and training in agriculture. And after, about the methodology, we choose to build the action plan. And finally, the deliberative, very operational nature of our plan. And in first, we can find the key facts and figures of agriculture and livestock farming in our Brittany region. In fact, a leading agricultural region in France, the sector represents a turnover of 11.2 billion euros in 2022. As we saw in the presentation of Monsieur Cossu, the agriculture is very important in Brittany because the Britain farms feed the equivalent of 1 in 3 French people, and more than 60% of the regional territory is devoted to agriculture. And of course, this is also seen in the structure of our employment. More than 69,000 agricultural workers, including 35,000 farm managers, are active in Brittany. It represents 3.6% of Britain jobs, while they only represent 2.1% on the French level, national level. I did to this in agri-food activity, which serves nearly 20 million consumers. We can see that agriculture issues are therefore crucial in our region. Brittany, like many other regions of Europe, is facing a wave retirement. 2,000 departures are planned each year for the next 10 years. It's a big challenge for our region and for the next years in the future. So we have set some general goals linked to the development of our agricultural training system, reach 1,000 installation per per year. Today we are 750 in Brittany per year. Meet agricultural employment needs. We need farmer manager, but also we need agricultural workers. If we want have good farms, we need good workers. And after we have support adaptation to ecological and societal transition. In Brittany, we are fortunate, yes, I say fortunate, to have a dense network of agricultural schools. The total number of students must be higher to meet our goals. We must not, one thing important, the public sector is particularly strategic in this objective because it trains 41% of students who complete their study with a diploma in agriculture. This is very important because in Brittany, in France, you cannot claim to become a farm manager without this type of diploma, and I think it's a good thing. What is also very important is that the public sector represents a very high public investment for the regional council. It therefore has to be effective. And so we have we met the directors of high schools, and following the interviews with the different stakeholders, we have met actors, regional government officials, public school and academic staff members. We identified 5 main challenges for the public school network. The first is attractiveness. The public school must attract more students for effective and innovative training program. Your program mobility of teacher and student is not enough for the moment. Practical and comfortable building and tools. Exemplarity and honest of the public sector lies a part in the advances in agroecology, livestock welfare, organic farming, water saving technique, etc. This asset must be encouraged by all means. The neutrality is very important too. We must be now the general public. Today is not very visible, not enough. An effort must be made in terms of marketing and communication is this area. We must to make visible this school. The sustainability, we have to achieve all these with limited public funds. A way to do it's to diversify the financial means to collect. This point is important too because like in many areas, budgets are difficult to find, and the public network was not very habitué. Myriam, je sais plus comment on dit habitué. Not very used to hit this point. But I think it's a good idea for have money for the school. And the last is governance. To meet all this challenge, we will have to invent a new form of governance with stakeholders. We will that all the school work together. we have a building, a big building, and to build a concrete action plan to meet this challenge, we have taken the path of global collaboration of stakeholders in a collective and unified approach. A two-day workshop took place in Pontivy in Brittany in May 2023 around 7 main themes: the farm schools, marketing, communication, financial diversification, professional training maps, investment, governance, current and future mission of the public agricultural training system. A lot of people, 1,000 diverse participants, came to take part in the various workshops. And the discussion resulted in a plan of 30 operational action structured into five core elements. This day were really important for me and for the collective, because we were able to create a real team, a cohesion, and a very good cohesion after this day. And together we have identified five elements, central elements of the action plan, which are 5 objectives to achieve. The first is the public agricultural school will have open up to a wider audience. Primary school students, education and training prescriber, professional farmer, and adult wishing to retrain in agricultural activity. The two building is communication, the network of public agricultural schools. We have to develop and implement a communication and marketing strategy to attractive the network and of each of the school involved. It's not enough today. Concerning farm school, the objective is to reconcile education vocation, excellence, and capacity for information. For example, exchange of students, experimentation with new tools, collective planning of conference. To harvest new source of funding, it's important. Public school will have to build a project together. We hope, particularly for the France 2030 call for a project. We will build a project with the school for this. As for infrastructure investment, this will have to adapt to the strategy therefore adapted. The entire training scope in concerned, students in college, apprenticeships of adult retaining. With 5 building, we have decline of 30 operational action. I don't show you each operational action, but the objective in the operational action, we have an action with objective, specific action, monitoring sheet, timetable, resources, performance monitoring indicators. The monitoring the progress of the action plan, tripartite steering committee will take place each year. This committee is made up of officials from the regional governments, the administrative authority responsibility for agriculture education, and the director of each public school. Our next step is to bring together the steering committee in April 2024 to make an initial assessment of the implementation of the action plan. To conclude, I will say that it was a challenge with a lot of work, a lot of visits, a lot of kilometers, time, but it was above for me a wonderful experience with a lot of meetings, listening ideas, and a wonderful challenge for the future. And with Myriam Labbé, the director of the project, I was very happy when all the elected people in Brittany have approved the plan in last December. This is a good signal for the future in a complicated agricultural context. And I think the Brittany region makes the job, and now we want that the state must take his responsibility. But I forget to talk about the remuneration. We don't forget that only to motivate and attractive people of agricultural, the profession must be remunerative, and that the breeders can live decently. Like my colleague in the Centre Val de Loire said before. Thank you for your attention. I hope you understand my French English. I'm better to speak my core, but I try to speak English. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Adeline. Your English is better than my French, so don't worry. Okay, have we got any of our listeners who would like to ask a question to Adeline? Have we got any questions for her? If not, I could ask you a quick question, yeah, if I may. Yep. Okay. So as we said when we introduced you, you have a good insight in the sector, because obviously you are a farmer, so you can see all the problems, all the obstacles you can find in your daily work, but also you have the point of view of the administration. Obviously, this gives you a really complete vision of the sector in your region. So my question is, how do you think, how can the region help? Let me put it another way. How can the region help agriculture schools to respond to the expectations of the sector in the field of skills?
Yes.
I don't know if it was clear enough, my question.
Yes, it's okay.
So how can the region, how can policies or politicians, local politicians, how can they help the sector to respond to the expectations and the needs of farmers and agriculture workers?
Yes. I think the region can help schools first in collaboration with the academic authority and all public schools. The work we can make the last months improve that a good cohesion make a good job. It will then be possible to identify possible missing vocational course and training based on this analysis. It will also be a matter of identifying the training offers that already exist and which the sector needs, but which will not be sufficiently attractive. And they then adapt the communication and retention strategy. We want to build a regional training map which preserve a territorial balance, particularly for the first qualification levels, but which has the same time limits competition between agricultural schools, so that the training courses are sufficiently followed and filled. Secondly, regarding green agricultural, all public agricultural schools must follow a national curriculum framework, which contains elements such as organic farming, but also other environmental labels, which aim to produce within the framework of more sustainable agricultural. This program has a specific name. His name is Learning to Produce Differently, and there are conferences with in this theme. Brittany also organizes the agroecology trophy every year, and I say that the last thing for the digital transition too. Our action plan provides for the organization of competition in this field. It's called the Tech Agri Challenge. The young students create new ideas, and it's present in the space. The space is it's Salon International in Rennes in September. Yes, I think it's true.
Right, thank you very much. Yes, again, we've got a lot of questions in the chat, and I think one is for you, Adeline, but maybe we can some of them also from the Canary Islands. We have a list of questions, but maybe later on you can answer them in written form. Okay, so thank you, Adeline. Thank you for your presentation. That was very interesting as well. And now we're traveling to the south of Europe, to Catalonia, where I am there as well too. And we say bon dia to Maria Marwenda. Maria is a lifelong training coordinator. Sorry, yeah, I'll wait for the slide. Yeah. Right, so yes, that's Maria. She's a lifelong training coordinator at the New Technologies and Horticulture Agro-Vet School in Cabrils, near Barcelona. And at the same time, she's the international coordinator of all the agri-food schools in the region of Catalonia. So she has a good vision of all the needs, because as you'll see in one of her slides, there are different agro-vet schools all over Catalonia. So it's not the same if they are in the mountain or if they are in the south of Catalonia, for example. And also, obviously, as a international coordinator, she is involved in different European projects, and she also deals with the mobility activities of teachers and students in these agricultural schools. So thank you, Maria, for accepting our invitation, and we'll just give the floor to you.
Thank you, Oscar. Good morning, everyone. I will try to be brief because I think we're a little bit out of time. But so let me explain before a little bit about the importance of the sector for the region. So some key facts are that people working in the sector are they don't reach even 1% of the total population. So we have 45,000 people working in the sector on the third trimester of 2023, and that's 11% less than the previous year. So as Fabio said, we are losing people, and as Adeline said, we are losing people in the agri-food sector. We're still on a very high ratio of male over women. So we have almost 90% of the workers in the field are males, And we are included in the smart specialization strategies, and we call them distress cuts. And in terms of GDP, the sector goes on less than 1%, more or less about the same as people working on the sector. Next slide, please. So those were the key factors that we have, and let me explain then the challenges and the needs that we have. So the challenges that we are facing right now in the sector are mainly generational renewal, as Fabio said as well. We are losing people. The sector is quite senior, and large part of them will be retiring in the next few years. We are facing rural depopulation. People are not willing to live in rural areas, and people living in rural areas are sometimes working in big cities, so they are not working in the area. And one of the main problems that we're facing as well is climate change, and especially a big drought in Catalonia right now. Yesterday we entered in a state of emergency in some parts of Catalonia, so we are facing a big drought, which is one of our main problems right now. And aside from that, we have some skills needs then, and we are working on them right now. We need digitalization of the sector because, as I said, the sector is quite old, quite senior, and we need them to be working on new ways and new technologies, and for them to use new machinery that will make their jobs easier. And we're also aiming to internationalize the sector in a way that we can learn from other countries who are already working on new ways of working in the sector. Next slide, please. So let me explain in a few words how we are working in Catalonia in the training sector, in the agri-food sector. So we have 50 schools that are doing agrovet, but it's a little bit complicated. So there are 27 schools that depend from the Ministry of Education, where Oscar and Anna are working. There are 8 private centers, and then there are 15 schools that depend from the Ministry of Climate Action, Food and Rural Agenda, so the traditional agriculture ministry. And that's where I am from. So our 15 schools have a special aura, or they are kind of special. So next slide, please. Each school is specialized in one sector. So if they are, as Oscar said, if they are in the mountains, they will be specialized in forestry or in livestock. Then there are some other schools that are specialized in organic farming. There are schools that are specialized in food production. So each school is very much specialized. So our initial vocational education and training is quite specialized. We're working on intermediate and higher education, and we are doing some Erasmus mobilities. And that's why with that we want to for these students to learn new skills, new ways of working on the field, and also to coordinate with other countries to learn from them, basically. And also our main characteristic is that we are also doing lifelong education and training for adults. So we're doing online and in-person courses. We are incorporating young farmers into the agricultural sector that I will explain further on. And we are doing that for current farmers as well. So people who are already working in the field but want to specialize or want to learn a little bit more, they can come to our schools and learn from that. And that's also where my school comes in. As Oscar said, I'm from the New Technology and Horticulture School. So our school was born last year, and is aimed at helping all the schools in regards to new technologies. So we're trying to promote new technologies in forestry, in horticulture, in livestock, so we can digitalize the sector. I forgot to mention, as you can see on the right side, that our schools are 50 years old. So some of the schools are very old already, and some of the schools are quite new, as mine. Next slide, please. So here is what our schools are doing. As I mentioned, we are doing in regards to lifelong training. We're doing courses, in-person, blended, and remote courses. We're doing technical sessions where people can go to a farm, for example, and learn from what they are doing there in a practical session. We are recognizing and validating work experience for farmers who are working on the field, but they didn't have the diploma, for example. So we recognize and validate their work in the form of a diploma. We also do internships at companies, both in Catalonia and outside. So that's why we are using Erasmus Mobility to send students to do their practical training around Europe and sometimes even in other places of the world. And one of the things that we are most proud of right now is our mentoring program, which aims at putting together a mentor and a mentee. And let me explain this. So a mentor is a person who is working on the field right now, who has a farm, for example, and a mentee is a young farmer who wants to incorporate into the system. And by putting them together, it's not a theoretical lesson. They work together, and the person who wants to incorporate in the sector, they can learn directly from an expert who is working on the field. So that's one of our main projects right now. Next slide, please. And aside from that, so we are doing lifelong education, vocational education, and we're participating in European projects, both individual schools that participate in Interreg projects, in Erasmus Plus projects, and as a whole service, as the agri-food training service. We're participating now, and I will explain shortly, in one Erasmus Plus project and one Horizon Europe that we think are quite interesting. And our schools are right now starting 3 Interreg projects and 1 Erasmus Plus project. So the first project that, the Horizon Europe project that we're working on is called EU Farm Book, and it aims at combining the knowledge obtained in 2 previous Horizon Europe projects, Euracnos and Eureka. And it aims at concentrate the information collected in those 2 projects into a platform that contains data and information that supports sustainable agricultural and forestry practices from an environmental, social, and economic point of view. And that will be a platform that will contain all of this data as knowledge objects. And the coordinators are from Belgium, but we're 18 countries participating, 29 partners, and we as Catalonia, we are working hand by hand with the Ministry of Agriculture in Spain, and we are mostly in the beginning of the project that will take 7 years, from 22 to 29. Next week, we have a pre-launch of this platform. I think we can go through the next slide very fast, so we have time then for questions and for the rest of presentations. But you will be able to see this when they share the presentation. Yeah, so here you can see the main objectives, and then next slide, you can see the platform that will be launched. And then the other project that we are working on is an Erasmus Plus project, which is called Farmer. and that's short for Future Agriculture Requires Motivation, Education, and Retainment. For that, we are 8 countries, 9 partners, and it's a 3-year project. We are finishing it right now. Next week, we are going to Serbia for the last learning training activity. And in here, we are working with 2 associations, ARCA or 2 entities, ARCA and the Science for Forest Management and Biodiversity and Bioeconomy Center. And next slide, please. So in this project, we first started by identifying the current and future skills that our education regarding agricultural sector has. Then we wanted to develop a practical and didactic manual for teachers in order for them to be able to motivate their students and retain them in their studies. And next week, we're going to Serbia to gather political recommendations from all the countries so we can learn from each other, as I was saying. And with this project, we are as well being able to make new collaborations for future projects and for Erasmus mobility. And I want to show you a sneak peek of what we learned in the last training activity, and that is farm incubators. They are doing that in France as well. And what they are is they are farms, actual farms, that facilitate access to land and a farm to work in. So physical support for new farmers who want to incorporate into the sector but are not sure whether they will be able or they will like it. So they are kind of a renting space without this part, without paying. And they also have a comprehensive support, so assessment during this activity test. And they are also covered by legal support. So they are a test space, as we call them, where people who want to start working on the sector can do it without putting all their money into it. And that's it. Thank you very much. I was very fast, but I didn't want to to cut on time.
Thank you, Maria. No, that was the right speed. Yes, very well. Well, actually, there's quite a few questions for you on the chat, so maybe you could answer them later on in written form, maybe, because I think we're a bit behind with time, and we still have 3 speakers waiting to intervene. So if Alicia says that's okay, we'll do it like that. Yeah, so she's nodding. So yeah, we can go ahead. We're going back to the north of Europe again. It's the time of Sweden now. We've got Gustav here. Gustav, good morgon. Okay, so yes, Gustav is a different kind of profile. So his profile is basically from the administration, because he's a regional expert on agriculture policies at the Västra Götaland region. Please excuse my pronunciation. And his expertise is mainly comes from the long period of time in which he worked at the Swedish Ministry of Agriculture. So he really has a good insight of all the policies related to this sector, and he'll be able to give us a really good vision of the sector in his region and in Sweden. So Gustav, thank you very much for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Oscar, and thank you to Adeline and to Maria, and also to the Commission for very interesting presentations before. Like Oscar said, I've worked a long time, not very long time, but a short time at the ministry, and worked with several different agricultural policies. And the last thing I did was work as the chair of the Working Party on Geographical Indications, which obviously is a very important agricultural matter for our friends in Spain, France, and Italy as well. So I'm collaborating with you, and hopefully we can find some common ground here moving forward also. Up to the north of Europe, not all the way, but almost all the way. And I will start with a few key facts about Västra Götaland and agriculture in the region. Västra Götaland consists of 49 municipalities, about 1.7 million inhabitants, and we cover almost 24,000 square kilometers. And we are one of 21 regions in Sweden. The agricultural sector employs almost 32,000 people. And the number of companies is around 11,000. What can be mentioned about these companies is that around 6,000 of these companies only have about 2 to 20 hectares of land, so it's very much small scale. Only 14% of these companies have one or more full-time employees, and almost 20% employ foreign labor. Looking at some of the main types of production in the region, if we start down at the bottom in the scale, or if in the form, we can look at arable land plus pasture. There we have almost 500,000 hectares, which is 17.5% of the total arable land and pasture in Sweden. We have almost 20% of pigs, cattle, and this includes both beef production and milk, almost 18%. Sheep, which is not a very large sector in Sweden, almost 14%. So we are a very large agricultural producer in the Swedish context, even though we can't maybe compare to Brittany. From a Swedish perspective, we are quite important. And regarding the arable land, I can also just shortly mention that on this, it's mostly produced cereals and green fodder, which is also the most common use of arable land throughout Sweden. So this concentration of agriculture means that there's also a lot of processing industry in the region, mainly concentrated around Skaraborg, which is the orange yellowish colors on the map, where you can see that around 60 to 80% of all land is being used as agricultural land. Then you have the Gothenburg, which is the largest city in the region and the second largest city in Sweden, which also houses the main trading port for Sweden, where you have more industrial specialization and production of, for example, bread, snacks, spices, and such. And finally, you have Sotenäs, which is located a bit up on the coast, which has a specialization towards seafood and fishing industry. So the whole food chain is very important for the region and also a large employer. If we zoom out a bit and take a look at the topic of today, agricultural skill, I will start with a study done at the national level, which I think mirrors the regional perspective quite well. The latest study concluded that 76% of companies or employers reported a shortage of skilled labor for new graduates. So that's a very high number. Whereas you can say that this number for experienced labor was 95% shortage. And only hotel and restaurant sector reported a higher number throughout the whole of Sweden. And the companies report that access to suitable labor is the second largest hindrance for growth, with only rules and regulations being a bigger hindrance. So, political priority. Competences and skills is one of the 4 priority areas in the regional development strategy. This is, of course, not only focused on agriculture, but the whole of industry. And the others are strengthening innovation, increasing inclusion, and connecting Västra Götaland. So there's a really strong political resolve behind this priority. And we began the development towards the current skills management agenda during the financial crisis of 2008-2009, which obviously led to an acute and intensive restructuring of the industry landscape, both in the region, obviously, but nationally and globally. So skills supply has been a priority in the regional development strategy since then. And Region Västra Götaland's own education providers for the agri-sector are important resources in the implementation of this program. So we can skip to the next slide, and I will talk a bit more about these. It was very impressive to see the number of schools throughout the other regions. Sorry that we can't boast with really as many, but we do have them. And we are also the region runs 3 agricultural high schools, as well as Sweden's largest vocational school for the agri sector. And also we have 6 folk high schools throughout the region. They are obviously a very important part in the implementation of the strategic program I just mentioned. And it has Maria mentioned that this is a complicated issue, as well as it is in Sweden. The high schools are regulated through an agreement together with 49 municipalities in the region, and this agreement is revised every few years. And during the current program, the schools are to focus on increasing the student numbers, proportion of students who complete their studies, knowledge results, and least but not most important, growth and sustainable development in the agriculture and forestry industries. So you can see that these schools are located in areas that could be called rural areas and throughout the countryside. So they also play an important role in maintaining living rural areas in countrysides. And we have throughout the last few years seen both increased output as well as an increased interest in these programs. And what I could say is unique about these schools and our activities and the strengths is the width of the education. They offer education in all branches of the agri-sector and throughout all the different niches that they are, as well as development work in these sectors. And the education is very much based on real-life skills, take place in an authentic environments, but also serves as test environments and space for students to learn and practice out of companies, as well as for companies and higher education to test out ideas and research at the schools. So it both shows that this is applicable in real life and also strengthening the attractiveness of the schools. Like I said, they have different test beds and collaborations with higher education, but also are working with trying to find new innovative ideas. For example, one of the schools have built tractor simulators, which students can train at different elements of field work instead of actually having to go out on the field every time. And as you know, for a country as Sweden, such as Sweden, it can sometimes be a bit colder. So this allows a year round also, but also lowers the threshold for newcomers to the sector, for example, who maybe don't have the doesn't want to sit in a tractor the first thing they do. They can train a bit in the simulator instead. Around 600 students at the high schools today, and 200 at the vocational and 200 at the adult education programs. And I would just like to say that a very positive statistic for the high schools and vocational programs are that 9 out of 10 of all students are either employed or start an own business directly after graduation. So obviously this speaks to the needs for these skills on the market. And since 2022, the government has tasked the regions with setting goals for providing competences regionally also. We started this work last year, still a bit of a learning curve, but one thing that has come out of this is a regional council for skills in the agricultural sector, together with all relevant stakeholders, as well as the private sector, education, and the administration, to better align the offered educations. We have a strategic partnership with the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, which is very important for the region in maintaining its presence. It's a campus. They don't currently offer any direct education, but it means that they still are located here and strengthens the knowledge environment. So the region has a really strong world-leading knowledge environment with a focus on both agricultural, nutrition, diet, sustainable production systems. We have the Swedish University of Agriculture. We have Chalmers University of Technology, Gothenburg University, which has really strong research groups within these fields, as well as the Research Institute of Sweden has its agricultural and foodstuffs department located in Gothenburg. Which obviously allows these groups to test out the research within the region, and thus, and in many times in collaboration with our education providers, and thus creates a very attractive and interesting environment for our students. And this obviously creates a critical mass to increase the sector's innovation environment as well as attractiveness. Next slide, thank you. So just it feels reassuring, or maybe a bit scaring, to hear that a lot of what I've said has been repeated in other presentations here, because in the end, obviously, it all boils down to getting people into this sector, as well as retaining competences and attracting new ones. And for this to work, the baseline is to create an attractive job environment for people to be willing to enter the sector. I will not mention so much about the generational change. I think that it's just as problematic here in the region and in Sweden as it is throughout the rest of Europe. And obviously, what has been mentioned with lifelong learning and attracting new people is applicable for our region as well. I have been primarily focused on the agri sector today, but I just would like to mention that obviously these same problems with skill can be found in the later parts of the food chain, which can be just as worrying and create ripple effects for the whole food chain, which is why the dialogue is needed to be held throughout the whole food chain for a better cooperation between employers and education providers. So we have a sector that is screaming for labor. Change is coming quickly, as Fabio mentioned for us. There is a lot of new things happening, both regulatory but as well as technological. I think that a key need is to shorten the thresholds for people to get into the labor market and also keep it attractive. In what I truly believe to be a future industry. There are still a lot of barriers. Agriculture is, as we all know, a very special industry. With us in Sweden, often a lot of small farms, one-man companies. So for someone to take in an intern or hire is sometimes a lot to ask. We need to find new innovative ideas of thinking and attracting, and not least retain the skills in the sector. For this, I think another baseline is for agriculture to be profitable, which in today's economic environment obviously isn't as easy, as my French and friends in Belgium well know. So I think that this is something that we are working on daily in our region as well as nationally. Sometimes you can see small glimpses of hope, but a lot of work is still ahead of us, and hopefully some new ways of cooperation can be found here through EARLALL and with my colleagues throughout Europe. So thank you very much. I tried to speak as fast as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Gustav. Have you got any questions for Gustav? Anyone in the audience? We've got a new message, but I don't know.
Though I'm seeing that in the chat there is plenty of conversation, so
Yes.
you can join the conversation there. I'm really happy that you are engaging through the chat, so that's great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Gustav. I don't know, Alicia, what do you think? How are we doing with time? Shall we carry on? Yeah, well, yes, I can see Miriana is there. Miriana's presentation. Miriana, yes. Now we're going to beautiful Tuscany to meet Miriana Bucalossi.
Thank you. I am
Buongiorno,
here.
Buongiorno, Miriana.
Buongiorno.
Okay, so yes, Miriana is the head of apprenticeship, work-based learning policies, and European project management unit at the Tuscany region, and within the EARLALL network, he coordinates the working group called Youth Policies, which is aimed at promoting youth employment. So, Miriana, thank you very much for being here with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning from Tuscany. Today is a sunny day. It's cold, but it's fantastic. Let me say that we are experiencing very high degree during the day, and I mention this just because some parts of my presentation we talk about climate change in terms of skills that we need to get and to provide for. So I'm starting my presentation talking about what kind of challenges the agricultural sector is facing now in Tuscany. And these are data coming from our regional research institute, which is a public body established by a regional law. And they are helping us in understanding and analyzing which kind of issues that we have in terms not only of skills but economic analysis in order to provide better policy measures. So if you access the EARPET website, you can find all the data that I am mentioning now. And we have to say that in Tuscany, as you may understand, because I think Tuscany is a region which is well known for a lot of very high quality production, for example, the wine one. So we have some great specialization in terms of excellence productions, but this could lead to a risk, the risk to encounter some or to limit the achievement of other policy objectives. For example, the reduction of food dependency, which is something that is perceived and also is coming from this analysis, but also the propagation of short supply chains, which is something that we have like strategic policy, and the maintenance of biodiversity, which is something very important, quite important for Tuscany region. Another thing that could be considered a challenge for Tuscany is the aging process of the agricultural entrepreneurship, which is something that we heard also from the European Commission. But this is something that we are now facing, and like the data show, there is hope, let me say that. Another challenge is the valorization of the female entrepreneurial component, which in Tuscany is quite important. And of course, this is something that we have to support because they have a very high propensity for innovation, green investments, and diversification. So it's something that is present within our agricultural sector, but it should be sustained. I mentioned in opening my presentation climate change, which is something that could be seen together with the green transition sustainability. This is something that our companies, our farmers, they are asking for us. because it's important not only in terms of economic results, let me say that, but also in terms of skills they need to face climate change and green transition in terms of sustainability of these processes. Today, the temperature in Tuscany is something about 15 degrees, but starting in the morning under 0. So as you can understand, for some of our production, this could be really an issue. So the last thing that we can see as a challenge, the dynamic of agri-food trade, because it was influenced first by the conflict in Ukraine. I don't mention the pandemic period because it's something that all of us has experienced, but of course it was also a challenge until a certain year, until the pandemic was reduced, let me say that. But also thinking about the strong impact that this conflict in Ukraine had on the cereal market. And then suddenly another challenge was the increase in energy prices, which is something that we have to mention because we had a very huge inflationary process, and this led to an increase of the prices of some essential inputs in the process in the agricultural business. So consequently, all the costs for companies, we had an increase on this of this cost. But of course, we have also some strengths, and I was mentioned that there is hope. One of these strengths is the fact that our young farmers are now better educated, and I am not the one that says that, but analysis and data, they said that we are experiencing a period of a better education and a higher level of specialized training in agricultural studies for young farmers in respect of the older ones. And this is something that we believe is important to mention because it's a sort of prerequisite for professionalization, for the modernization and the dissemination of new sustainable production practices within the sector. So it's quite important to mention this. Another strength of our system is what I already mentioned, the incidence, which is quite high, of excellent production, for example, wine, but also olive oil. And these allow a premium price that can be obtained from the market. Another thing that we have to mention for Tuscany is that all these excellencies that I mentioned are strongly linked with tourism and other rural activities. And this is allowing us for the diversification and integration of company incomes. So many of our companies in agricultural business also are engaged with and linked to tourism. For example, we have agri-tourism. We have a lot of tourism packages for example, in terms of winery visit, wine tasting, and so on. So this is a core business for Tuscany too. But when coming on vet challenges, we believe that we have to mention almost 3 challenges that in terms of vet policies we have. First, we have to consider to anticipate skills and smoothing transition to the labor market. I am thinking about our young people, and also I am thinking about the resilience of vet systems. The pandemic shown us how important it is to be resilient when some shocks in the markets, something that we couldn't see in our future become our present. So the way that we have to redesign our VET pathways is quite important, like also the Commission said before. Doing this, the ecosystem approach is the second challenge that we have, because it's important to join efforts with different stakeholders for a better skill governance. And acting like this, we have some experience. I mentioned in this slide the Connections project. I later on will explain you what I am talking about, but this is not the only example that Tuscany could present in these terms. The other challenge is the policy design, because it's a matter of flexibility, not only in terms of adapting the skills provision, but also in terms of the policy measures that we have to provide for, in terms of, for example, policies which are targeted to managers, to unemployed people, to from an individual perspective. For example, individual learning accounts are quite important, like vouchers one, but we have also different policy measures that could be put in place. And this mix of policy measure could be the correct answer to these challenges that we are facing. Just to give an example, here you find some information on the Tuscany region wine sector, because we have to consider that in Tuscany we have over 12,700 wineries. You can see the number of recognized geographical indication and DOP and DOCG and DOC. They are a huge number for a region which is which has a dimension like ours. But what we have to mention is that these wineries are almost small companies. So we have some very well-known and big companies, but most of our wineries are small companies. So this is something that we have to take into account when designing the policies targeted to support skills in this sector. Of course, like you can understand, the wine sector is a strategic one. It is a subsector in the agricultural sector, but it is strategic for itself. So this is the reason for us starting from the beginning of the pandemic, but in reality we started 2 years before, 2018. But in 2020, we published our first call of this type. We decided to support the higher specialization of wine technician within the region by means of dual apprenticeships. So as you can understand, we are talking about an ecosystem, the wine one, I mean. We are talking about how to be flexible in terms of policy design and financial support to VET provision, and also how to anticipate skills, because apprenticeships is a mean to anticipate skills. So here I am presenting you some Tuscany region strategic actions. They are not the only one that we provide for, but they are, I believe, the most interesting for a webinar like this. First, something which is linked with the slide before, the dual apprenticeships for wine technicians. This is a post-secondary level education pathway. This is not only VET in the Tuscany regional VET system, because it's something that belongs to the state provision for vocational education and training. But what we provide for as Tuscany region is to reconvert this kind of pathway in a total dual apprenticeship one, because usually it is provided by school with a very short period in the companies. Now it is 40% in company training. So we support this kind of project. I mentioned connection project idea, which is not only a project idea, but it's part of the bilateral cooperation among Italy and Germany. And it is a national project, and we are within this project, we are members of the National Committee for monitoring the bilateral networks that are established within the Connections project. For the agricultural sector, we are the ministries of labor and education in Germany decided to finance one of our bilateral network, which is Italian-German, but it is something quite important because it is a network of regions, education providers, schools, universities, social parties, association representing the wine technicians and the enologists, both at Italian level and German level. And they choose to join efforts to support vet providers, companies, and the two regions of Tuscany and Rhineland-Palatinate to focus on green transition and climate change adaptation of our vet offer. So it's quite important, I think, to mention this kind of project. The project is started the 1st January of 2024. Of course, we were working on that both in 2022 and 2023. But it started last January, and the kickoff of this project will be in Germany in a few days. The last things that I would like to mention to you is that it's about the policy mix I mentioned before. I am talking only about the European Social Fund Plus. I am just saying, talking about only the European Social Fund Plus, but because we have, of course, other types of funding belonging to the state, which are used in the same way. I mean that in terms of policy mix, we have twin transition as a transversal strategic priority, which is something that is reinforced for this programming period. So we as region decided to have twin transition transversally for all the policies that are provided for the European Social Fund Plus programming period 2021-2027. And in these terms, we have also agriculture as a specific strategic sector with the specific budget lines within the European Social Fund Plus program. I mentioned here the last one, which is the one for unemployed target, but consider that we have specific budget lines also for manager, for employed people, in terms of projects that are financed in order to support the upskilling or reskilling of people within the sector. Last but not least, something that we already mentioned, the dual apprenticeship focus on wine sector, which is for the first time till 2020 supported by European Social Fund, because before, until this 2024 here, it was financed by means of national state resources targeted to apprenticeship. But we decided to invest more on this kind of support for the specialization of young people skills. So we switched to European Social Fund. last, I would like to mention what kind of approach in terms of ecosystem we have in Tuscany by talking about skill governance. First, we have by regional law the regional tripartite commission, which is a body, a technical body established by regional law. The region has since 2002, sorry, this law. This is a body which is made by Tuscany region and social partners belonging to companies, organization, and also to different stakeholders like the organization representing the workers, but also some other association like the one representing disabled people and so on. In this regional commission, we have the consultation of all those actors, and we present and we design together with them what we need in terms of policies for vocational education and training, and also for active labor market policies, and for example, all those policies that are provided within our regional public employment systems and services. The second things that I would like to mention is something that we have provided from 2019, which is the local pact for skills and active labor market policies. We provide these both at municipality and provincial level. So we share these commitments with social parties at municipality or provincial level to detect and to understand what training needs or which kind of needs that they have within the local level that we could support with our regional policies. With a view, of course, also to job placement and re-employment of people. Last, how we support our policy-making processes. We try to investigate all the dynamics that we have within the regional territory by analyzing what is happening and forecasting what we think that it's going to happen by means of our regional institute I already mentioned, which is a key partner. So they provide for us, but not only for us, but mainly for us, we should say that, research activities on the structure and evolution of the regional economy and other regional policies. So I think that my presentation is coming to an end, exactly. So these are my contacts, and in case you would like to know more about the actions that I presented you, I am at your disposal.
Thank you, Milena. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I think we can, if there aren't any questions, we can carry on. And now we're traveling to the Basque Country to meet Leire Egunon. Leire is she's a teacher at an agriculture vet school in the Basque Country, and also she's a collaborator in biosciences and sustainability at Technica, which is a very famous vet applied research center in the Basque Country. So Leire, thank you very much for being here with us today, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Oscar, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain and share our experience in Basque Country regarding agricultural skills. Next slide, please. In my presentation, I'm going to mention very briefly the general information of the sector in the Basque Country. Also the skill needs and challenges, but they are already mentioned, so I am going to focus in the role that it's playing nowadays, the Basque vocational education and training, contributing in the development of agricultural skills. Next slide. The Basque Institute of Statistics periodically publishes general information on the sector, and the data presented are quite recent. We are just over 22,000 people working in the sector, and 70% are men compared with 30% of women. The contribution of agriculture, livestock, and fisheries in terms of gross domestic product is less than 1%, about 800 billion euros. And the agriculture sector is included in the RIS3 Euskadi strategy. Next, please. As previous college has explained, the sector has several needs and challenges. In terms of challenges, the population is increasing, and therefore the demand for food production. Climate change is altering temperature and precipitation patterns, increasing droughts and floods that endanger harvest. Digitalization is changing our way of life, and is giving us new opportunities to manage fields and lands, to optimize natural resources by monitoring processes, making patterns to understand the evolution of production. And of course, general renewal is necessary, and it's not easy to enroll a student in our forestry studies. So we have a very big challenge improving the attractiveness of this sector. Next, please. EGP Euskadi is the brand name of the vocational education and training centers in Basque Country. The Basque system offers studies related to agriculture, farming, forestry, and landscape management in 5 different schools. And here there is in one hand formal education of basic, intermediate, and higher bed courses. But there is also a lifelong education and training courses for adults to train both unemployed and workers. So all that centers work together in a network coordinated by Technica. Technica is the applied research center for Basque Vet, where teachers can develop innovative projects in the area in which they are specialists. All new knowledge that is acquired or created is transferred to the network of vet centers. Firstly, by transferring the knowledge among teachers, and secondly, in the classroom to students. So we know that a student needs to develop various skills, not only technical ones, directly related to agriculture. Also, digital and green skills are necessary for the twin transition, and another ones like entrepreneurship or communication skills. Next, please. In the next few minutes, I'm going to explain what Technica is doing to contribute to the development of digital and green skills through the innovation project, Food Innovation and Precision Agriculture. This project started more or less 10 years ago. An aquaponics facility was built to learn how this food production technique works and how we get fish and vegetables at the same time when there is hardly any water renewable. From the beginning, the project has applied digital solutions to control this complex system. Based on sustainability principles, and being aware that vet institution should be an example to follow for the twin transition, we are working on the application of the digital transformation in order to optimize resources to be as environmentally friendly as possible. Next slide, please. So in this project, we have 3 different work lines. Sustainable food production, digital transformation, and transferring the knowledge. to teachers and the students also. These work lines are possible because our work team is multidisciplinary. The team is made up of staff from the fields of agriculture, aquaculture, and from also electronics or robotics. So here, the ideas in plants are most likely to be carried in an easy way. The next slide, please. So regarding the sustainable food production work line, we have working on aquaponics, hydroponics, and symbiotic aquaculture. The biggest challenge in aquaponics is to ensure the balance between fish, plants, and nitrifying bacteria. At Technica, we are testing different fish species to find out which species not studied before in aquaponics are the best suited to the condition of our facilities and are suitable for our region. Similarly, we are testing plant species such as vegetables, medicinal plants, ornamental or edible plants. The harvested fish and plants are distributed among the vet centers, culinary schools for the most part, and also food industry and pharmaceutical schools. In the greenhouse, there is an hydroponic research unit where we can test different growing media, fertilizers, or any interesting parameter. The main idea is to identify what organic wastes there are in our region and reuse them in agriculture. That is, to implement the circular economy in the primary sector. For example, we have done some tests using sheep wool instead of raw wool as an alternative growing media, because nowadays sheep wool is thrown away and the farmer has to pay a tax for it to be finally burned. As for aquaculture, we have done some symbiotic aquaculture tests in recent years. The objective is to control the balance between carbon and nitrogen and to create a rich trophic net by adding probiotics and food ferments with high sugar contents. In this way, water quality improves. There are fewer pathogens in the environment. The fish immune system is improving, and there is more zooplankton biomass for the fish to feed them, and which reduced the consumption of commercial. Next slide, please. Regarding digital transformation, we started by focusing on the automation of aquaponics facilities, using PLCs to control parameters such as an activity of irrigation solenoid valves, the activity of water sensor, or light programming. The next step has been to start monitoring basic parameters such as pH, electrical conductivity, temperature, and radiation, and to continue installing cameras to control the evolution of the pest. The cameras send images to a platform, and artificial intelligence identifies and counts the insects. In addition, we are using drones with hyperspectral cameras, and after analyzing these images, we can obtain several vegetation index, which are very useful in agriculture and also in forestry. Finally, we have acquired a robot arm that makes its decisions using artificial intelligence. It picks the strawberries when they have reached their optimum ripening point. So for this purpose, a huge photo album has been created to fit an artificial intelligence program. And the next slide is our the last work line, that it is related with transferring the knowledge that we are, the teachers that are here in the project have acquired. So as I said before, participating in a applied research project means transferring knowledge to the vocational training network. And in this case, in this project, what we do is to improve agricultural skills. We organize also forums or meetings for teachers related to sustainability food production and precision agriculture. And in addition, students from several agricultural schools have training days with us, with our team. And both vocational training and university students can carry out their traineeship or internship in our project. The next. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. Right, so what's next, Alicia? Because it's already 12 o'clock.
We are running a bit late, but as you have seen, we have an active chat box. We have been collecting your questions and you have been interacting. I think the discussion doesn't stop here because there are several opportunities of collaboration. So we will be sharing with you the presentations, as many of you have been asking. You will be able to rewatch as well this webinar online. And also you can get in touch with the speakers if you want to go further in discussing some of the things that we have been presenting today. So yeah, I think that's all. We will have a new webinar in April that will be dedicated to the care sector. So it will be a similar structure, but with this topic. So we are going through a sectoral skills approach in EARLALL, so looking into the different sectors, what is happening in the regions with the skills and so on. So yeah, Oscar, now the floor is yours. Maybe thanks.
Yes, just to wrap up the webinar today, I think we've managed to get a really good vision of the sector in Europe, because we've had some examples from Northern Europe, some examples from Southern Europe, and we've seen that there are a lot of coincidences. That there's and I think the conclusion we must get out of this webinar is that there's still a lot of work to do. Not only because of the needs that just come up by themselves, but also because of all the different challenges that we are encountering, like the drought that Maria mentioned, for example, the protests we're seeing in France on the farming sector. These protests that obviously in France, maybe they're more visible, but we can see on the news that they are happening in other countries, in other European countries. So yes, a lot of work to do. So let's work and let's try to solve the problems. Thank you.
And thank you to all the speakers for your time, yeah, and to Oscar and Anna for chairing this meeting. So we will be in touch. Thank you and have a nice weekend. It's Friday. Enjoy it. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.